guys, right? Okay, no, I mean, primary, secondary school, as a parent, what can you do now? Close it down and build your own one. That's true, isn't it? Anyone heard of this? Eric?
As you're becoming more consumer society, what's happening is the idea is that the consumers actually involve in the product development and also the executions in many services as well.
Yeah. Okay. So if you're dissatisfied with something, you can make that change. You can kind of close down your children's school, raise money through government, open up your own school. Okay? If you're dissatisfied with your treatment from your hospital, you can move hospital. You can move consultant. Okay? So you're participating in your present. And you never used to be able to participate in your present like you can now. Does that kind of make sense? Okay, so festivals are just one tiny aspect of this whole bigger movement. Okay? All right, authenticity. Have we kind of gone on about authenticity before? Or has anyone heard of the phrase authenticity? Yeah? What is it? Okay, it says there, but why is it so important to us? Why is it so important to experience the reality, whatever reality means? Matthew? Okay, what?
Authenticity gives you a feeling that it's been a kind of more organic thing. Real people have come up with it because they wanted it to exist rather than it's just not.
Okay, so when we have a kind of a, when you look at things like Super Size Me, etc., the film from 2003, I think, when we look at McDonald's, is that authentic? To who?
To the person who goes to a McDonald's copy fast food restaurant. So I want to go to authentic McDonald's because they have a heritage.
Very true, very true. But when you look at kind of things like Super Size Me, what is that portraying about McDonald's? What's it saying? That it's lying, that it's it's food that's kind of, it's not cooked, it's kind of machined. It's not a real cow, it's kind of like a cardboard cow. It's kind of not a real... Do you know what I mean? None of the things... Rosie?
It took something genuine though and made it tomorrow.
Right, okay. So what are we doing when we're going to festivals?
Trying to bring it back again.
We're going back, okay? We're kind of reclaiming things. Food, music, whatever it is, okay? Society, where we're almost going... in a way, kind of going back in time, maybe, in a way. I don't know. Now, those of you that are interested in kind of authenticity, perhaps, might want to read somebody called Baudrillard. Okay? And how do you spell that? B-A-U...
It's complicated.
B-A-U-D-R... something. Baudrillard, yeah? Okay? He's cool. So writes about authenticity a lot. And other things. Okay. So therefore we've got commodities, and the thing is that, just like with stuff in the 90s, we all had stuff. We all had access to stuff. We could all afford stuff. We could all get a credit card. Stuff was shipped in from wherever, and we just consumed it. So we didn't need any more stuff, basically. So instead of stuff, we needed experiences. Okay, so we could buy stuff because it was going to give us experiences. And now we buy stuff, and we're going to buy stuff in the future, and you'll see this as this becomes more of a fashion. We're going to buy stuff because it transforms us, others, the world, the environment, whatever, yeah? Okay? And anything can be commoditized. Anything can be kind of mechanized, rationalized, etc., etc. But the genuine, whatever the genuine is, and however the genuine is made, built, or faked, is very different from that. So we hanker after authenticity. Yes, Eric?
So how many of the festivals done by the Gateshead, Newcastle Gateshead Initiative are authentic?
All of them. They were all invented by, I think it was in about sort of 4 or 5 AD. So they've been around 2,000 years. Okay, right, next. Yeah, so basically all of these things, what Eric's saying is that all of the things that we're talking about that are selling authenticity are actually fake in themselves. Because they're 5 years old, they're 10 years old, and they hanker after. When Carol was talking about the festivals in Saltwell Park and myths from local stories, etc., yeah, these are brought in, they're kind of readapted for a new clientele, a new time, and they're sold as genuine. They're sold as the authentic. Okay, it's called the invention of tradition. Okay, and those of you that wish to look this up, you can look this up on Google Scholar. You'll find hundreds and hundreds of articles about the invention of tradition. Okay, and why traditions are invented and how traditions are invented to seem as though they've been around forever. Yep.
What happened with the drawing?
Well, that's authentic, isn't it? That's as authentic as you can get. That's my final project for my masters. So, myths and fairy tales. Okay, that's my APA. Okay, right. So myths and fairy tales. Right. Okay. So myths and fairy tales are these like incredible things that are they're not quite real. They're not. Are they claiming to be real? They kind of live in a kind of a fantasy world. They kind of bridge various worlds. So what we've got is this thing called science. Okay, and science is rational, and science is something called empirical. Anyone know what empirical means? Matthew? Yeah. Okay, so you can test it, yeah? And science is also something called, it's positivist, which means that that basically it's about, in order for something to become a scientific rationale, a scientific theory, you have to prove something, okay? You have to find evidence, data, etc., okay? Positive data that proves the point. Positivist, yeah? So this is about some sort of semblance of truth. Well, it's not really true, but it's how we perceive truth through our tradition that we live in, our intellectual tradition, through the scientific tradition. So this is fact. It's kind of like provable, disprovable. It's kind of like, etc., okay? Right? So this is science. So this is kind of like, measured kind of reality. Yeah? So it's trying to deliver truth in our era. But myths and fairy tales are more about stories, I think, boundaries and dreams. Well, actually, science is about these as well. But it doesn't claim to be. It claims to have empirical truth. Yeah? Rational truth. So if we look at stories, okay, often these are about morals and origins. Why do we need to know about these things? Okay. Okay.
Can make a point of reference because if you don't know where something started, it doesn't keep itself.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. So point of reference, binding people together in a kind of tribal thing so they can share experiences, share truths, just like we now share scientific truths. People in eras, in communities, share truths from fairy tale and myths. Okay? Okay, so they're the building blocks of our knowledge, of society, of cultures, of communities, of families, yeah? Right? They're the reference points, they're the building blocks. boundaries. Okay? So what I've got here is for boundaries, we've got fear and otherness. And otherness is huge. What is otherness? Why do we need boundaries? And what is otherness? Why do we need boundaries? Matthew? Go on, you were there.
Just even think about like physical boundaries. Why do we have at the UK have to check passports for
Yeah.
people?
Okay.
Why do you have like UK control? Passport control. Why is it not just open?
Safety.
Safety of what? Safety from what? Outsiders. What's wrong with the outsiders?
The unknown.
The unknown. Okay. All right. Okay. I mean, even here, we've got the design school here, which is this building, and millions of miles over there, we've got the law and business school. And you'll never, ever, ever see anyone from over there and here, unless they're lost. And you'll never, ever, ever see anyone from here in there, apart from going to the canteen, and then perhaps the toilet, and then back here again. We've got our boundaries. They're unwritten boundaries, actually, because there's nothing stopping us from going. You know, there are written boundaries, there are unwritten boundaries. But when we talk about them as not being creative. And we're creative. So we're kind of setting out our myths. We're setting out our fairy tales about us and them. What makes us, us, and what makes them, them. They're the other. We're creative, we're cool, we're kind of like informally dressed, and they're like kind of always got some sort of cheap suit on, and you know what I mean, yeah? Okay, and shiny shoes and turn-ups and things, yeah? So we're setting out our boundaries, our fairy tales, our myths. We do it all the time. We just don't maybe articulate it. Now, the otherness is incredibly important because we need to define ourselves, and one way to define ourselves is by categorizing things. And through our intellectual tradition, through the Enlightenment, we come from a categorizing philosophical tradition. We categorize things, and therefore when we categorize us, anything that isn't us is the other, and we fear the other, or we celebrate the other, but it's definitely the other. It's definitely not us. It's otherworldly. Yeah? Okay? So that's really important about kind of like our sense of understanding, about our sense of identity, our sense of purpose. So this is us over here, and over there, God knows what goes on over there. It's probably not pretty, what goes on over there, okay? Because they're the other. Right? Do you see what I mean? Okay? And basically, like in the Middle Ages, do you know the phrase beating the bounds? Anyone hear the phrase beating the bounds? Yeah? Anyone else? Do you know where that originates? Or how that originates?
Once a year you go out and like pace around the boundaries of your like church. Parish,
Yeah. Yeah.
to make sure that
And what's the beating bit coming? Well, children, basically, were shown the boundaries of their parish by being given a good beating at the boundary. So they knew, they'd remember for the rest of their life that that was the boundary. That's where it comes from, okay? Okay, so fairy tales, myths are also about dreams. So they're about fantasies and they're about aspirations. Yeah? So it's kind of self-evident, you know? So they kind of tell us who we might be if we kind of like work hard enough or kind of are lucky enough or stand out enough or whatever it is, yeah? So it's very different. They're kind of intangible, unlike science, which is allegedly this tangible, empirical force. Okay? So that's who we might be. Well, I'm a bit fat for that now, but, you know, that's okay? Right? Okay, so what might you design? So basically you're going to be given a brief, you're going to give a brief. It's just, standard stuff. So these things about kind of festivals, myths, etc., fairy tales, they're always